So before the advent of no-fault divorce, we had situations that we permitted in situations of divorce. And that would be adultery, abuse, addiction, abandonment, right? And if that took place, one spouse was deemed at fault. They were at fault for wrecking the marriage vows. They were at fault for not living up to what they had promised. And then the court and all of society could side with the innocent spouse and reward the innocent and reward the mom or dad that was trying to keep the marriage together, trying to protect the kids, trying to do what was best, right? That is no longer where we are today. Today, we have a no-fault divorce system, which means that anybody can exit the marriage for any reason at any time. And the majority, like Stacy said, are not at-fault situations of things like abuse where you legitimately need to end the marriage. Most of them are because you've fallen out of love, you have communication issues, pretty much marriage. I mean, marriage has come up, and instead of dealing with the issues of marriage, you want to exit, right? And like Stacy said, that just means handing your load off to your kids and saying, you deal with it because I can't. Mm-hmm. So let me say, it's fascinating because all divorce damages children. It all hands them a burden that they shouldn't have to carry. But the kids that tend to be the most wrecked by the divorce are the 70%. Are the ones that had no idea that there was anything wrong. Like the 30% where there was abuse or there was massive high conflict. When the divorce takes place, they experience some relief. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, well, that makes sense. That was really rough. The 70% of the no-fault divorce situations where mom or dad was just unhappy, those are the ones that go, what? Right. And they either say, well, it must be me. I must, since nothing was wrong.
Since there was not conflict.
Since there was no conflict, I must be the reason. It must be because of me. And it's those kids that have the hardest time forming their own stable relationships and marriages later on. Because what they learned from that divorce is, I can never rely on anyone. Even if it looks like this person loves me and has committed to me, until death do they part, they could leave for any reason and I'll never see it coming.
Right.
I had never heard any of that. Mm-hmm. Can I just say, I was a young university student when no-fault divorce arrived in the parliaments in Australia. And I remember thinking, gee, this is not a bad move. It's a bit rough to have somebody outside the marriage saying one side's innocent and the other's guilty. Mm. How would you respond to that?
Well, I'd say that we've actually done surveys on the overall impact of no-fault divorce laws, right? And when the marriages can be exited more easily with no outside scrutiny, they tend to be entered into less often, and people tend to take their commitment less seriously. So I think that there's a lot of people that will say, well, I don't want the government involved in that. But most of us have some friends or a few who have gone through that no-fault divorce situation, and we see the absolute injustice that is wreaked on behalf of the innocent spouse and the kids, just because one person doesn't want to adhere to their own marital vows, and the devastation that comes, right? To that one spouse who says, I am willing to go to counseling, I'll do the parenting classes, please, I want to keep this home together. And yet the no-fault divorce laws gives the most power to the spouse that is misbehaving the most. And so in a general sense, you can say, well, we don't really want an outside party involved. But as soon as you're seeing it in your life and you are listening to the kid who's saying, you know, every night I go to bed sad and I don't know why, then you're like, get that third party in here and make that person own up to what they committed to, because it is victimizing the innocent.
That's really interesting food for thought. Something I'd not sort of focused on so much. It does give the lie to the idea that marriage is simply about love is love is love. That's one of the most trite sayings I've ever heard in Australia. It gets bandied around all the time. Love is love, as though that says something meaningful. Actually, marriage is about a whole range of things. In many ways, it's about committing to love, surely. Not only of the person you married, but of anyone that you bring into the world. So it's a multifaceted, sort of elemental thing, true marriage, isn't it? It's much more than our culture says it is.